Welcome back to the podcast. On today's episode, 60 days to a new you. A new life for you, and it's only going to take 60 days. I can't believe, Doc, that you have waited this long to tell us this. There have been a whole lot of 60 days that have gone by, and I feel like I've lost a lot of time.
There's been a whole lot of 60-day periods where we could have done this and been over with it.
Because the one thing I need is a new me.
On Just These Guys, today, 60 days to a new you.
6 days to a new you. We got Dr. Parker in the house.
And Pastor Mike.
All right, let's just jump right into this today. 60 days to a new you. If there's anything in your life that you have been thinking you have wasted way too much time to fix, that's living in the past.
It is so simple. I'm going to walk you up to it in a kind of a Socratic kind of method, perhaps.
Socratic.
Yes.
Got it.
And this is how Paul wrote. If you ever read anything by Paul in the Bible, you can't just take one paragraph out and run with it.
Romans may be the best example.
He builds to something and then makes a point and then talks about the point. Mm-hmm. And I want to do a little bit of that this morning. And before I do that, you guys rock this weekend.
Well, it was another very odd church weekend.
Church.
It is that's church to me.
Out in the community.
That is church. We have a devotional that we share for the weeks that we're doing this, and the one that was written this week was on living the interrupted life. And how many people are there in your world that we get so busy that we just tend to overlook? Well, even for us on Sundays, a lot of times we get so busy, wrapped up in that, the whole idea that we got to get to church, got to go to the building, we got to do, and the same old routine, but we overlook a lot of the things that I think Jesus would actually prefer for us to do.
Well, and that was, it was kind of hit me Sunday morning as, most people, they go to church, they go huddle up in a circle and they praise each other and they dress for each other. And then they leave that building and they go back to their normal lives, which we're going to change here in 60 days.
60 days.
But as I pulled up to the house where one of the projects were, I looked at the house and went, what the hell?
Right. Why are we here?
Why are we here?
Mm-hmm.
Why are we here? The front yard, side yard, the house itself. It looked great. Mm-hmm. I'm like, is he just, farming us out to his friends? We're going to mow his friend's lawn.
And
then we walked into the backyard. I'm like, oh. Okay.
And then you have to consider who it was for.
Which I never met. I don't care.
Nope. But the reality is it was for a lady who, even living in that house right there, you just didn't have the resources to blow on.
And from the outside, you wouldn't know it.
Nope. But that was a chunk of wood, big old branches that had fallen from the storm on the house, beside the house, through the fence. Yeah, it was a mess. But isn't it amazing how quickly that got cleaned up? Hour and a half.
From start to finish.
With about 20 folks.
Yeah.
Just boom.
Yeah, because when I heading home, I looked at the clock and went, holy cow.
Yep.
Maybe not even an hour and a half. Maybe an hour.
It was actually just right at an hour.
Yeah.
And within a couple of hours, it was all at the burn pile.
It took a while for us to show up.
Sure.
Get rounded up, get going.
Oh, yeah.
That was amazing.
So that was just one project. We had several projects going on over the entirety of that Sunday, with all of the kits that were put together for ICT SOS, with all the kits for Project Teacher, with all the kits for Simply Hygiene. There will be thousands of people who benefit from the whole idea that we are the church, that we don't just go to church, but we do church. We are the church.
Yeah.
And so that's the beauty of this summer, that every other week we're just going to go and we're going to put feet to our faith. We're going to put action to our faith.
People show up to the building and it's crickets. Hello?
Hello.
I'm here for church. Nobody's here.
Yeah.
They're
Well,
all out in the community.
we always have one project going on in the lobby. Come join right in. There's 20 of us that go to this church. So, yeah. No, it was a great Sunday once again.
60 days to a new you.
60 days. Hit us with
60
it.
days. Let's start it like this. Tell me the church's phone number.
316-201-1771.
How easy was that?
How easy was it?
How easy was that?
It was easier than I thought it would be.
Now, that data,
Yeah.
where is it stored?
That's a good question. That is a really good question.
You didn't look in your phone. You didn't look at a Post-it note. Where is it? Where is it?
In the Ulungata?
Where is it?
I said Ulungata.
In the brain? It's stored
In the brain.
And people say my memory, but think about it a second. Where is your memory? In your brain.
In your brain, yeah.
What is your brain?
It's an organ.
It's a pile of fleshy goo. You're right. It's an organ. It's flesh. And you have this data stored in your flesh that you can fall back on any second. Now, how did it get in your brain? How did you memorize the phone number?
Repetition.
Repetition.
Yep.
Now, here's the deal. If the church got a new phone number, what would you have to do to learn the new phone number?
Memorize it.
And how would you memorize it?
Repetition.
You would repetition it, and it would go into storage. What would happen to the old phone number?
It would go bye-bye.
It would eventually fade away. So just to establish what we're doing here, by repeating a bit of information over and over and over and over and over, we're carving a rut in our brain.
Neuropathway.
Or you can call it something fancy like that. you're in
Switch
there.
seats here.
You're etching on your brain the phone number. So by repeating this phone number, blah, 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 you literally change your brain.
I'm starting to.
Now, let's make it a little more advanced. That's just a phone number. And notice when you get the new phone number, you go through the process of repeating it till it gets etched in, and the old phone number just starts to fade off. Now, and I've done this, I've known people have done this. When you leave work and drive home, you go on autopilot.
100%.
100%.
Yep.
You go, okay, I'm going home now. And it's like you go into a trance and you wake up in your driveway.
Yep.
How did I get here? And so if your wife calls and says, hey, we need milk when you get off work. Okay. And you pull into the driveway. Shit, I forgot the milk. Well, the same thing is happening at a more complex level. You are carving a rut in the brain. You're taking a stick and digging it around in that goo. You are creating a neural pathway, not just how to operate the vehicle, which is extremely complicated, but then the route going home. And so when you do that route repetitively, this neural pathway gets laid down. So when you activate the route to say, hey, I'm going home, in your brain, the part to pull out of the parking lot to turn left lights up, but so does the part of pulling into the driveway light up. So you can drive without thinking. And it is literally a neural pathway that gets laid in. Now, if you were to move the church and now you have to go home a different route, you have to stop and think about it.
Yeah, you're thinking about it. Yep.
And I had somebody I knew who worked down south, and they moved the residence. And so they used to live on the east side, and they would come up, say, Tyler, and they would turn right on Kellogg and go. And then new house is on the west side. So now they have to come up, turn left on Kellogg and go. 3 days in a row, they went up and turned right on Kellogg because that brain is automatically running the neural pathway that you put in there by doing it over and over and over and over again. And it takes intentionality to create the new neural pathway. Now that they've driven the old route to the west side multiple times, they don't think about the old address. They don't think about the old route. In fact, they would have to stop and think, how would I get to that old address now? Because that neural pathway is faded out.
Mm-hmm.
So what we've established here, which you can't argue with me, is by repetitively doing something, you can literally change the neural pathways in your brain.
Yep.
And when you repetitively do something and change those neural pathways, anything related to it, the old neural pathways, just simply fade away.
Mm.
Right?
Yep.
Okay, now, one more thing. Do this. Clasp your hands together. Everybody in the audience, clasp your hands together. Now, notice which thumb is on the top.
Right, for me.
Okay. Now, re-interlace your fingers so that the left is on top. How does that feel?
Not natural.
Not natural, awkward.
Mm-hmm.
And when I leave people like this for a few seconds, they will, without me asking them to, go back to the old way. Just because it feels natural. And that is a perfect example. We have neural pathways. And so when I ask you to clasp your hands, that's how you do it. Now I've asked you to do it a new way. It feels awkward, so awkward. There's just this automatic response to go back to the old way.
Sure.
So now let's apply this to our lives. We have automatic ways of doing things. We have automatic ways of thinking about ourselves that run automatically. We etched that into our brain. We created that neural pathway by repetitively telling ourselves these things. By repetitively thinking a certain way, we make a literal physical change in our brain. It's not this esoteric, oh, I think, therefore I am.
Yeah.
It is, I am literally changing the neurons in my brain by how I think. And when I think something repetitively, I carve that into my brain, and that becomes my identity. What I tell myself I am, I am. Why am I that way? Because I tell myself I am. So if I say I'm a loser, I'm going to see myself as a loser. I'm going to feel like a loser, and I'm going to respond like a loser. So here, try this. No, I can't do it. And guess what? I can't do it because I've told myself I can't, not because I can't. It is this pathway I'm carving into my brain. 60 days to a new you.
60 days is all it takes.
60 days. Now, this what's happening in the world really kind of driving this point home for me. Set all of that aside for just a second. That's the basis for what I'm about to say.
Okay.
You can change your brain by repetitively saying or doing something until that becomes the new neural pathway, and you establish this new habit, new routine, new identity by saying something over and over again. And the old just fades away. And it's really important to understand because people always come to me, how do I not feel this way? How do I stop doing that stuff? I don't want to do that anymore. I can't keep going on. I ain't got another relapse in me. I don't want to. They're trying not to do something, but it's so natural that when they try to do something different, it feels awkward. So they go back to the old way. Okay. You ever know anybody who joined the military?
Yep.
And God bless all you military people out there. I'm a veteran. But let's be honest. When they went into the military, what were you thinking? I go, oh, snap. He ain't going to make it. You know, he couldn't even hold a job. He got kicked out of college. He wasn't good in school.
Sure.
He got arrested. That's the only reason he's going in the military. How many, those people going in the military, a large percentage of them, speaking when I was in the Navy, there was always a universal conversation that occurred when 3 or 4 guys got together and it got quiet. One person would say, so why did you join the Navy? And there would be a story that was just fantastic. And we'd all laugh about it now, but it was always some bad story about, I did this and I did that. And then I had to get the hell out of town. So I joined the Navy.
It was either this or prison.
This or prison. So now think about it a minute. That guy going in the military, 60, 90, depending on the branch of service, but 60 days later, they come out the other end, a Marine.
A stud.
They come out the other end, a soldier, a sailor. They come out the other end, walking tall, looking sharp. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. Helping little old ladies across the road, getting up at 4 a.m., making the bed, taking care of business. The guy that went in, the guy you knew coming out of high school who went into the military, that guy, would you leave him alone in a room where your wallet was laying on the table?
Going in?
Going in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sadly.
Yeah.
Yep.
But that guy coming out, we trust him with $1 million piece of equipment and the lives of 20 to 30 other people in his hand.
Yep.
That same physical being walking into the military who was a loser, a civilian, somebody who didn't believe in themselves, someone who was depressed, someone who was anxious, someone who was running from something bad in their life. 60 days later, they're a brand new person. They have transformed from a civilian into a Marine. God Country Corps, they've transformed from a Marine, from a civilian into a sailor, civilian into a soldier, civilian into an airman. And they are different people. How did the loser become such a stellar soldier? What happened in those 60 days?
New pathways.
Boot camp.
Yeah.
And what is boot camp comprised of? Every single day.
Yep.
Every day. Get up. Every day. Make your bed. Every day. Do this. Every day. You are being told who you are. You are a war-fighting machine. You are, responsible. Here are your 10 general orders. Memorize these things. You live your life by these things. This is the Navy way to do things. Drill instructor, when I was a civilian, this is what, there's a Navy way to do that. Drop and give me 20. And it's repetitively drummed into you who you are, what you do, how you do it. Every single day. And what's pretty cool is for those who've been through boot camp, that first few weeks is so uncomfortable, to put it politely. It's so awkward to do things this way. But after they're doing it for 30, 40 days, they begin to tell it to themselves. I am somebody. I am special. I am a sailor. I can do this. I am a Marine. God Country Corps. Hoorah. They start taking the identity into themselves that they rejected just a month earlier. I can't do this. I got to get out of here. I'm running away. And here it is, 30, 40 days later, they're encouraging the other guy.
Sure.
And now by the end, the drill instructor doesn't have a lot to do because they've bought into the identity. They've bought into the routine. So he just walks in. It's all done. And it's like, what's your 10 general orders? Boom, boom, boom. Give me your weapon. Condition 3. Boom, boom, boom. It's drilled into them. They become a new person in 60 days. And guess what didn't happen?
They didn't stay the same.
Therapy.
Oh. No one expects a therapist to say that.
There was no therapy. They didn't sit around and talk about how they felt about this new change we're talking about. I don't know about this new identity you're trying to give me. Can we have a group meeting about that? I want to explore my feelings. No.
So they don't offer counseling in the middle of boot camp?
You're out. You're out.
Yeah.
You're out. No,
Yep.
there's no talking about it. There's no therapy. And that's the deal is the guy coming in, the girl coming in, for whatever reason, most of them, now there are, there are great guys who go in, I want to serve my country.
Absolutely.
They went in with the proper motivation. They had a career path in mind. Those people do exist, but there's a large portion of them that, one guy we called Zipper because he had 8 scars on his head and he wouldn't tell us how he got them. But he couldn't stay in New Jersey anymore. That's all he would say. I had to get out of New Jersey and shave his head. I'm like, what the heck happened to you? I don't talk about it. But he, this is not a guy you would have met on the street and said, hey, why don't you take this rifle and come with me?
Sure.
He, not a trustworthy fellow. But here it is, 60 days later, shoulder to shoulder, elbow to elbow, let's go. How did they change? And it is so utterly simple. But it's a commitment.
Right.
If you are telling yourself you're an alcoholic, you're a drug addict, you're lazy, you're stupid, you're ignorant, you're a bad spouse, guess what you will be?
Yep.
Because that is the neural pathway. That is the identity you have carved into your own brain, literally carved this identity into your skin. And so your brain automatically views yourself as that label.
Yeah, I've got a very good friend of mine who for years I have seen him completely different than how he sees himself. He has always labeled himself a loser. He has always labeled himself someone who cannot get, he's can't do this, can't do that, can't read, can't all these things. Doesn't have a GED. And I just kept telling him, because you can't want something for somebody else more than they want it for themselves. But I kept telling him, listen, if you ever want to actually go for it and get your GED, I'll do anything I can to help you do that. So he finally made that commitment, and the dude is killing it. And just that step of changing that neural pathway from I'm a loser, I can't do it, to I can do it, I'm going to go for it. It's kind of like you were talking about going on auto drive earlier. It's the whole idea that you can't learn to drive a parked car.
Right.
You just got to get going.
Got to get going.
Got to take those steps and take that first step.
And that's what happens. We said we can't do something or this won't work out or I'm not that guy. You won't start.
Right.
You see yourself failing before you start. So why start? If I'm just going to drive off the end of a cliff, why get in the car? That's stupid. Why go back to college? I'm going to fail.
Right.
Why do that? I'm going to fail. Why apply for that job? They're just going to laugh at me. So the messages I'm telling myself, I am literally, and this is the deal, they're carved into our brain. And just like when I asked you the church's phone number, and if you got a new church phone number and learned it, what happens to the old phone number?
Yep. Goes away.
So it's not about not doing something. Stop telling myself I'm a loser. It's about doing something new. I am a good guy. I can succeed. I am successful. I am smart. Now, the first couple of weeks, guess what? That's going to be awkward.
Sure.
But the repetitiveness, the repetitive nature, the daily brainwashing, if you want to call it that. I am a good guy. I can do this. Now, do I believe it in the moment? No, but I'm saying it because I want that message to be in my brain. And as I tell myself the new message, guess what happens to the old identity? It just fades away.
Yep.
And I no longer see myself as that old guy.
Yeah. All of a sudden you look in the mirror and you see a different person.
Romans 12:2.
Renewed.
Do not conform to the ways of this world. Don't believe what the world is telling you. Don't think about yourself like this world thinks about itself or other people. Do not conform to the ways of this world. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Put new stuff in there. You can't put new wine into old wineskin. You have to put new information in and keep putting it in there so it stays on the shelf. You have to keep etching into the brain the neural pathway that I am a good person, I am successful, I am smart, I can do this. And the old just simply starts to fade away. As long as you're putting the new message in, the old one will just disappear. But that awkwardness, that first couple of weeks, getting it kickstarted, getting it going, that's the challenge. That's the fight. And I see it all the time. They're like, oh, I'm so fat. I'm like, you're not fat. You're in pretty good shape. No. Look at this. No. Look at that. Yeah, but look at this and look at that and look at this. Yeah. I'm still fat. They can't take that message in because that old message is in there and locked in. So anything that counters the message just glances off like Teflon.
Mm-hmm.
You yourself have to put the new message in. You have to write the new neural pathway. And it's going to be awkward. But I'm telling you right now, if you do it in 60 days, whatever it is you're working on, working out, eating, dieting, identity, depression, anxiety, if you start giving yourself the new message every single day, in 60 days, you will be a new you.
And it starts with 5 words. First 2 words, I can.
I can.
I can. I can.
I can.
I can. Next 3 words, do it now.
Do it now.
I can do it now.
Do it now.
Do it now.
Is there a period in the middle of that? I can. Period. Do it now.
Either way, I can do it now or I can, period.
So when this podcast goes off, you start laying down the new message.
Yep. I can do it now. Good
Do it now.
stuff, Doc. This is so good.
I can
Remember
do all
this.
things.
Information without application is an abomination. You can't learn to drive a car that is parked. Go get her done.
Thank you guys for tuning in this week to Just These Guys, you know.
And that was really good. Have an awesome week.
And we'll see you next week.